and start with an update. The 5-city tour began last night. We are here. I'm here right now in Des Moines, Iowa. We were supposed to travel to La Crosse, Wisconsin today to do an engagement there, and then go on to Green Bay and Bloomington, Minnesota, near Minneapolis, and then end Monday in Milwaukee. And we found out last night that the Green Bay venue canceled. We found out this morning Milwaukee, which was going to be the biggest group, we were looking at probably around 500 people, was going to cancel. And today in La Crosse, Wisconsin, the folks managing the venue were concerned about liability, and so they had an issue with the amount of liability insurance that Worldview Weekend had, which is unusual because they had $2 million of liability, and their insurance company put their stamp on it and said, this is what we got. And there were some issues there. So that became untenable. And then in Minnesota, which we were supposed to be there on Sunday evening, we had jihadis and Antifa, Marxists, converging there, and we know that law enforcement in that area is not supportive of our efforts. So we made the decision that we didn't feel like we could keep the attendees, or ourselves, but the attendees safe because the amount of law enforcement that would have been needed to be hired would have been excessively expensive. And Worldview Weekend, Brannon Howse at Worldview Weekend, literally footed the bill for all these venues and for the security. And this would have required significantly more security, and even then, it was not necessarily going to be enough. So that's where we are. So we got one good night in. We had approximately 200 people in the venue in Des Moines. We had a few detractors show up, left-wing and Muslim detractors. Oddly enough, the Muslims didn't say anything during the presentation, but the Marxists did. And we answered their questions, and when they made ridiculous statements, we corrected them and moved on. And it was great. It was very well received, many compliments, but there were also people in the room who told us they almost didn't come because they were concerned for their safety in Des Moines, Iowa. So we pointed out, I did a media interview. Those of you who were on our mailing list, on our newsletter list, I sent something out just about 20 minutes ago with a link to the television interview they did, which included me and Brannon and some of the clips of the event. And it was actually the first honestly measured reporting from a regular media outlet. And what I mean by that is like a local news outlet that I can remember in the last 10 years. But here's what we know has been going on. The Southern Poverty Law Center a couple days ago put out a defamatory screed about me and understanding the threat, and they listed all the venues which energized their surrogates in Antifa, which is a Marxist communist terrorist group here in the United States. And anybody who does 1 second of research knows that they're violent, and they do violence completely unprovoked. You've seen them destroying property, setting things on fire, and beating people and pepper spraying people, and that's how they operate. And so they flooded the venues with calls saying, we're coming. And, you know, while I don't think the managers and owners of the venues, you know, from my perspective, could have showed more courage, I also understand if I'm a manager of a hotel and a known terrorist group like Antifa says, if you allow this to happen, we're coming, which means we're not only going to protest, we have a history of setting things on fire, hurting people, and destroying property. That's a tough decision. But I want to make clear that that is where we win or lose this war. Those decisions by managers and owners of hotels who should say, don't show up on our property. You can, as a business owner, as a citizen, as a pastor, as a chief of police, as a sheriff, decide that, you know, we'd rather just get along. these groups, these Marxist groups, these jihadi groups like CAIR, these terrorist support groups like the Southern Poverty Law Center, don't do what they do to get along. We just wrote an article at understandthethreat.com about the Southern Poverty Law Center, saying that I went to San Diego with my team in February and, quote, absurdly identified an Islamic center in San Diego as a Muslim Brotherhood organization. Well, the group they're talking about was the Islamic Center of San Diego that's owned by the North American Islamic Trust, which is, per the Muslim Brotherhood and per the U.S. government, a Muslim Brotherhood organization that directly funds out of their bank account the terrorist group Hamas, leaders overseas and organizations overseas that are known Hamas organizations, which is why Nate, along with many others, including CAIR, are unindicted co-conspirators in the largest terrorism financing trial in American history, U.S. versus Holy Land. What's interesting, since Nate owns the Islamic Center of San Diego, Islamic Center of San Diego in the 9/11 report is also identified as directly supporting two 9/11 hijackers, al-Midhar and al-Hazmi, which the Islamic Center's own bank account allowed a transfer to come through from Khalid Sheikh Mohammed's nephew to the tune of $5,000. So that's the organization Southern Poverty Law Center is defending. And by the way, they regularly defend and work with Hamas, doing business as the Council on American Islamic Relations. So if they actually expect us to take them seriously, they're lunatics. Now, they're supposed to be made up of a group of attorneys who should be able to look at publicly available court documents from the largest terrorism financing trial in American history and actually look to see that what I just said is actually factually, per evidence, true. So the question is, did they not do their due diligence or don't they care? And in either case, it tells all of us that SPLC is intentionally supporting terrorists and communist revolutionary Marxists who then are energized, and you can look at our Twitter feed and you can look at what we just put out on our newsletter, what Antifa is actually putting out. It was a call to disrupt and threaten businesses, and our speech, all we did is speak. And here's the challenge for all those people out there making ad hominem attacks. Name one thing that Understanding the Threat or anyone on my team puts out that's not factually true about Islamic law, Sharia, about the Muslim Brotherhood, about their network. Please let us know. We have a standing offer. If you can demonstrate that, we will stop teaching it, publishing it, remove it from our materials, and we'll give the person who brings it to our attention $1,000. So far, nobody last night didn't say a word when I made the offer. Neither did the other Muslims in the room. Neither has CAIR when I emailed it to Ibrahim Hooper while we were in San Diego and they were launching ad hominem attacks. And I said, here's the offer to you. Now, I probably wouldn't send the money to CAIR because they're a terrorist organization and I don't want to get in trouble for materially supporting a Hamas organization. But I would still openly admit that something we said or did was not true. Brannon hosts our TV show and our radio program on his platform, so we're grateful for that. He has shown great courage in setting this whole tour up. Can you share with people not only your perspective, but some of the responses you got from the venues and even the venue that we were at last night in Des Moines? Just whatever you think you should share with the viewers.
Yeah, well, thank you, John. The texts and the emails are continuing to come in, and people are frustrated. We're hearing, the last email I heard before I stepped off the motor coach to run in here was a lady that said, I don't know whether to be frustrated or angry or relieved. She said, I'm relieved because I'm worried about you guys. And we've got a lot of that. A lot of people are saying we're nervous about this tour. We're really worried about you guys' safety. I've never had so many people, I mean, this may sound odd, but I've never had so many people ask me, when you speak publicly, do you wear a bulletproof vest? I've been doing this for 25 years this past February. People don't ask me that, but maybe once a year. Last night, I had 4 or 5 people ask me that. I hope you're wearing a bulletproof vest. Even one of the cops that was with us last night said, you really ought to be wearing one of these. And they were dead serious. What has happened to our country that people that gather together have the people sitting in the audience saying, we hope you wear a bulletproof vest. Police officers that are listening to you speak say, I hope you're wearing one of these like we are.
And what are you doing? It's free speech. You're just speaking.
We're just talking about facts.
Right.
We're quoting from their documents. I mean, you're speaking on Islam. I do a little bit of that, but my talk last night was on the Marxists, how the Marxists are infiltrating evangelicalism. And who did all the talking and defending for the Muslims last night?
The Marxists.
The Marxists.
Yep.
The Marxists, the admitted Marxists sitting there while the Muslims were silent. Literally, the Muslims sitting next to them, they were the voice of the Muslim.
That's right. That's right. So what happened, I walked through it, what the SPLC did, energized Antifa, the threats, and I recognize, and I said this a moment ago, that as a business owner, that's a tough decision. When Antifa says, we're coming to your hotel, and if I have, spent 5 seconds watching TV footage, I know that means they might hurt people. They
Molotov cocktails?
Yeah, Molotov cocktails. They might destroy my property. They might scare people out of my property who want their money back.
And then you got the film crews that show up to watch it all.
That's right. That's right. So,
and the question becomes...
what do you think about that? And what was your interaction with some of the venues and things that you want to share with?
Well, the first one was the Radisson Convention Center in Green Bay, home of the Green Bay Packers.
Right.
I mean, really? So they canceled us without any warning. They just called and say, our ownership has said we don't want anyone like you here at our conference location. We'd been with them before. Our ownership doesn't want someone like you at our venue. But it was hey, we're concerned. We're getting calls and we're concerned. We don't feel comfortable with this. Okay, that was the message we got this morning from the Country Springs Hotel in Pewaukee, a suburb of Milwaukee. We've been flooded with calls like never before. Our website has been hacked. We're scared. We're nervous. Our ownership really just wants this to go away. Okay, I can understand that to a degree. It's still a contract. We mailed out 40,000 magazines, printed and mailed. So how are we going to get that cost back if we can't hold an event and take an offering to offset our cost, right?
You sue them.
Yeah, exactly. You breached the contract. Now you're going to pay our damages. But at least they were trying to be nice about it. The hotel in Green Bay was just rude. Our hotel ownership says they're never going to host a group like yours. Well, what is wrong with a group like ours? We're just talking about what the Islamic documents say, what the Marxists are saying. What if someone after 9/11, the morning after 9/11, had said to you, hey guys, in 17 years, you won't be able to go and rent a hotel ballroom and speak truth about what just brought down the Twin Towers. If somebody told you that the day after 9/11, what would you say?
It would be hard to conceive.
Yeah, wouldn't it? Yeah, here we are.
Here we are. And not only can you not speak, you're threatened with physical violence.
Well, look, think about this. You got Antifa terrorist organizations threatening to do violence. And the question is, what business owners, what organizations, what communities, what groups can stave this off?
Right. I mean, this is where we are. And this is why I thought that this discussion, especially in light of all these events. So we had two venues cancel in Green Bay and Milwaukee. We had the incident where your liability insurance was a question, even though your insurance company said, no, we're putting our name on this. They've got $2 million.
$2 million, plus we named the center that we were renting.
Right.
And we're literally needing to get on the road to be there in time. And they call and say, well, it's not quite the way we need it broken down. So but the interesting thing is, why did they not ask for this 2 weeks ago?
Right.
Why did they ask for this a month ago? Why did they not ask for this in November, December?
Because Antifa wasn't breathing down their throats and making threats.
Exactly.
And so that tonight, La Crosse, Wisconsin, out. Now the only remaining out of the 5, we did 1 last night, 2 canceled. This one kind of got drug out so long that we couldn't do it, is Minneapolis, Bloomington, Minnesota, right by the Minneapolis airport. And we had to make a decision, and we as a group today, including Sharam Hadian, who was going to be there.
Former Muslim, now Christian pastor.
Right. And the decision was made that, number one, we saw Antifa and jihadists converging on Minneapolis, meaning that was going to be
the focal point.
The focal point. And we know as a
And they have reinforcements there.
Right.
We
the
already
whole
saw
community.
Yeah.
I mean, and you've got
Somalians.
you've got a mayor and a governor and
a sheriff,
officials who support the jihadi community and literally do not support this message. So we didn't feel like we would have law enforcement support. And
although the Bloomington Police Department was really trying their best to work with us, but again, the concern is the politicians that put pressure on the police chiefs, and you know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah. And I just want to, as we close here, I want to reiterate: this is the war that we're engaged in. This is it at the local level. That's the touch point. We get. It was said last night at least 3 times that I can remember. This war cannot be won at the federal. If you are waiting for the FBI to figure this out, if you're waiting for President Trump to make some edict and it's all going to get, we are past that point. It's at the local level that local citizens have got to get educated on these movements, how they've penetrated. You don't got to be a rocket scientist, but every school board meeting, every church in your community, the local police, the media, the people who are batting for the other team have got to be identified.